Flip, Floss, and Fly, presented by Say It Loud Canada, the ultimate financial literacy program, brought to you by the Black Business and Professional Association and the Donald Reid Estate. Here are your hosts from Flip, Floss, and Fly, Andre Smith, financial literacy expert and poet, Farley Flex, social activist and entertainment trailblazer, and Roderick Brereton, social entrepreneur and conflict management specialist.
And with that being said, we're going to have to add on to Andre's resume. Author, tell them a little bit about the book, my brother. We got the new book out on the streets. It's making bestseller already around the world. So we're going to make it happen. We're plugging it. Tell us about the book.
It's funny because I was just about to tell you that you're going to have to update that first page. But yeah, I just published my first book. It's called Living Purposefully Beyond the Walls of the Ghetto. And it details my journey from Spanish Town, right? Struggling with identity, struggling with poverty, struggling with crime. All of these things were issues that were once a barrier for me and something that I struggled with greatly. I talked about, when I had to make decisions between joining gangs in my community and choosing school. My biggest motivation through that journey and my biggest inspiration was my grandmother. She's not here with me today, but I've talked about her a lot in my book and the significant influence that she's had on my journey. I also talked about some of the important people that I've met throughout my life that helped me to overcome adversity on multiple occasions. I talked about my wife and the extremely important role that she played in me today, right? From the time that I met her, how I met her, and the role that she's played. So it's when I was reading the book, I actually started crying because it's one of those things where as you're dealing with certain issues, you deal with it and you overcome and you move on. It's another thing to put everything into a tangible, the form of a book. Absolutely. And then looking over everything. So yeah, I'm excited. I have my book launch coming up on December the 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'd love if everyone here can join the launch. Camille, if it's possible, can you share the registration detail? I had sent it out to Camille, but I'd love for everyone to join. We're going to talk. You're going to hear from other people who, will talk about my journey and some of the work that I do in the community, even back in Jamaica, that is a reflection of the struggles that I've been through. One of such initiative is my scholarship program. To date, I've awarded 6 students back in Jamaica. I believe it's like 4 girls and 2 boys who demonstrate leadership, academic excellence, and also struggle financially. So yeah, I'm pumped, and I'd love, like I said, for everybody to join.
All right, amazing. And we always support community and when good things are going on. Farley Flex, show the people what's coming up on November 25th and 26th in terms of Say It Loud and Mentor Me, my brothers.
Absolutely. So most of you probably know or have seen activity around Say It Loud. It's a campaign or an initiative, actually better said, to promote Black pride and positive cultural identity. And what that is a fulsome way of creating a platform for Black youth to rise to their brilliance out of resilience. And one such mechanism that anti-Black racism, institutionalized racism, systemic racism has shallowed the pool of mentors, professionals, people who can influence young people positively in a mentorship capacity is it's a deficit. So what we're doing is we have something called Mentor Me that you can check out at the sayitloudcanada.com website, and we will be in the categories that we've identified for the platform. We're having mentorship support provided for Black youth right across Canada, right? Technically ages 14 to 29, but as Rod and I always say, age is a mentality, right? It's not just a chronological existence. So we have people who are outside those age parameters who, for instance, you might have an 8-year-old who's advanced and can be considered in that category, which we've had on this particular project. And we've also had people who are older who want to take back their lives. So Say It Loud, Mentor Me is about to pop on the 25th in the Francophone version, and on the 26th, it will be the Anglophone version, and it starts at, I believe, 6 o'clock, right?
Yes, sir. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock p.m. And obviously we pick a time that's going to be hopefully accommodates our folks in Nova Scotia on the East Coast, and certainly our folks in Vancouver on the West Coast to the best of our ability. But
right, 100%. And for those of you who are aware of Say It Loud, please follow us on IG at Say It Loud Canada. And also the submissions, we're having them coming in droves. Black youth from across the country are showing us their proficiencies and what they have propensities in terms of those categories that Farley mentioned earlier on. The deadline is tomorrow night, 11:59 p.m. We will not be going a second over 12 o'clock a.m. So please, please, please get in your submissions if you haven't done so. And again, the submissions have been incredible in terms of just the wealth of talent and the interest and the skill sets that Black youth across the country have. And and again, check out Say It Loud Canada on IG to see some of those submissions already, because we're putting them up and people are obviously chiming in. And we also have the IG takeovers with young people from across the country right now, really engaging and intriguing to see that happening. So lots of big things happening. Obviously, big up to the BBPA for all that they're doing in terms of supporting Black communities from, again, Halifax, actually from Charlottetown, PEI, right? We're getting people from Charlottetown, absolutely, east to west, from Charlottetown to Victoria. We're getting everybody involved. So big up everybody and keep on doing your thing. Andre Smith.
And I guess, Rod, I think for the last minute folks, which we know exist, understand that you can submit a concept. You don't have to have your project evolved to any measure. If you have a brilliant idea or concept, you can submit that by video, and we'll look at that as something that has obviously the potential to move the Black race forward with respect to all the categories. So go to the website, sayitloudcanada.com, and you'll get all that information. All right. Andre Smith, it's on to you, my brother.
All right. So let's start with a bang, like the Big Bang Theory. How are we doing, everybody? Are we Irie today as usual? Give me some Irie in the chat.
Did you say Big Bang Theory?
No, Big Bang. Well, there you go.
I'm giving you something, man. Take it.
Yeah, give me some. Yeah, that's what I said. Oh, you know so. Yeah, that's what I said. Big Bang Theory. All right. So, let's first things first, we're gonna start with the homework. But before we talk about the assignment, I actually had, well, this is my own observation, and I don't know if anyone was watching the stock market when the announcement came about the vaccine. Pfizer announced the vaccine and the 90%, Pfizer, the 90% efficacy of the vaccine and the impact it had on the stock market, right? Immediately when that news was announced, the market went wild. So that's one thing. The market, it gives us a picture of what the recovery is gonna look like.
Right.
So that's one aspect. The second observation I made is how the recovery is gonna look for certain companies. And this was my own observation. I don't know if anyone else saw this, but the companies that benefited a lot from the COVID impact actually declined. So the Zoom, a lot of those online platforms, the Amazon, the Shopify, a lot of those companies dropped. I think Zoom dropped about 20%, right? Whereas the companies that were most adversely affected, those companies went up significantly. Companies like AMC, the cruise companies, the Caribbean cruise, Royal Caribbean cruise or something like that. So a lot of the cruise and the airline stocks actually went up, right? And that kind of, say to me that the recovery is gonna be pretty good, but the recovery is not gonna be the same for everybody, for every company. So that's my observation. I don't know if anyone else saw anything from the the announcement and the impact it had on the market. Anyone want to share their observation when the news was announced about the vaccine? Jumar, Camille? No?
Amanda, Carnell, Adaya, all of you, the faceless people.
Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention, so I missed out on all that information. Like, I only got like bits, so I only got the name, but I didn't see who was affected from who wasn't, right? So
Okay.
You know,
I missed out
Andre,
on that.
Andre, one of the things I just to encapsulate it, a lot of the ones that did well because of COVID, that was kind of discovery, right? Like the average person you didn't hear anybody talking about Zoom unless you're in a particular sector, small sector of business. And so those are the discovery stocks. And now looking at the recovery stocks, you know what I mean? Like,
that's
because
a good observation. Yep.
Yeah,
good.
I think that's really what it is.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely want to, and I like that the discovery versus the recovery. And it's you know, a lot of it, I'll tell you, at this time is around uncertainty, because we don't know for sure when the true recovery is going to happen. And we don't know for sure which companies are going to be able to survive until that recovery happens, right? But there are things that we can do, which we've looked at in the last session, and we're going to continue to do today. We can look at the health, the financial health. And by the way, I think Camille just shared the link to register for my book launch. But we can look at the thanks Camille, the financial health of the company, which is what we're gonna continue to do today. All right, stay-at-home companies are a big hit. Yeah, stay-at-home companies, there you go. Even the workout company, a few companies that sell at-home gym and equipment, those companies took a big hit, right? So it's interesting, very interesting. So, all right, so for the last assignment, you were asked to, you know, so the first part of the assignment was to identify the industry or the sector that you are most interested in investing in. And then for this part of the assignment, you were to look up specific companies within that industry or sector. So, you know, anyone want to come on the chat, you know, like as usual, you know, make sure your video is on. State your name, where you're participating from, and the companies that you arrived at, and why you choose those companies. All right, so please don't act shy. We're in week 22.
Okay,
I'm not a stranger anymore.
I'll go. Actually, I was looking at three.
Okay.
Pardon?
Yep. I'm saying okay.
Two of them is actually in the Canadian tech market.
Okay.
And one is my safe bet because I actually have it in my portfolio. And that was, the first one was in the energy sector. I chose Enbridge. Right?
Enbridge, okay.
I'm just gonna pop up my notes here for a quick second.
So I'm just gonna write them down as you talk so that we can do some analysis ourselves.
Of course, with Enbridge, I believe earlier, I think it was this month, they went up like 8%.
Okay.
They're roughly in like they made it, I think, 3 billion in the third quarter. I'm just going by the quick notes that I created here. They still have a good amount in cash flow, like 2.1 billion. There's a few projects few growth projects that they're working on. And with those growth projects, they're looking to go up or generate at least 5 to 7% within their shares.
Okay. Sorry, can you just detail the growth projects? Like give an example.
That I didn't get, but I will definitely look into it and find out. And they just mentioned that I guess their growth in their share come 2022 will go up to like 5 to 7%.
Okay.
And with that growth, they're looking at a dividend yield of 8.2%. So, but again, for me, I chose, one of the reasons I put it in my my portfolio because I felt it was a safe bet because it's energy, right? And it's it's one company, one of the main energy source for Canada or Ontario. There's a next one called Fortis.
And another important thing about Enbridge that I learned recently too, Jamar, is that they also focus on clean energy. So they're diversified in that regard. So I know some people were concerned about oil and the whole EV thing. So Enbridge is well positioned for that transition as well.
And I think because the oil price has gone up, one of the reasons why the Enbridge stocks is doing well so far. Because of the increase of usage of oil. So that would be my main safe bet one.
Okay.
I'm still, to be fair, as much as it may seem that I'm well, due to your guidance, that I'm well, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I'm still in the learning process of really reading the stocks and really reading the things that you need to look at before even invest in.
Right.
I'm still learning the analysis component of it. So I'm still learning that, because sometimes I view it and I just look for, okay, this looks safe. Like they look like it's on the market. There's a lot of what's the word? Hopefully I'm saying the word properly. Liquid, like it's a liquid asset. Like you can actually trade. You can actually trade your stocks. You can buy and sell it, no problem.
Yeah.
The next two that I looked at, because I know Canada's not, and I could be wrong. Please correct me, anyone that's online right now. That Canada is not renowned for their technology, right? But there's two companies. Let's see. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing their name correctly. One is Xylogit. It's SYLOGIDT, and the next one is CALIAN, and both of them deal with like providing almost like a cloud-based platform
solution. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For I think Calin, that one is they mainly deal with education, the defense sector, and within the government, right? And they're up 30%. I'm still looking into them, so I didn't get that much in regards to them. But
stock price is up 30%.
Yeah, I think their stock overall is up 30%.
Year to date, as of this year?
Yeah, of this year, yeah. I still need to get more information. I'd only jot down like a few things, but the other one I looked at, the Xylogit, I'll put the names in the chat.
Okay.
And the Xylo one is up by 13% to year to date. It's a cloud-based enterprise. Their dividend has grown 4%, and since 2015.
Sorry, what was the dividend growth?
4%.
4%.
Yeah. This part was kind of iffy for me, because it says that since 2015 the dividend has grown 60%.
60%?
Yeah, since 2015. Yeah.
That's 16 or 60?
60. Right. And then as of May 2020 of this year, it's gone up 10%. Right. They have a revenue.
Sorry, you said this was concerning for you. Why was this concerning? The growth rate of dividend.
I guess I was looking at the percentage. Like I guess for me, I didn't understand it. So I was just like, okay, you know what, 60%, is that something to be is that a positive? Or, because again, if the dividend is too high, right, can they really hold can they really hold that payout to everyone and everyone that's actually is it sustainable? That's it, right? And then when I read when it stated that it went up 10% as of May 2020, then of course I'm like, okay, I'm still going to, again, because of the whole learning process, still going to put it forward, right? Just to see what everybody else's feedback would be on it. They generate their revenue through like subscription and maintenance, right? And it's been stable, and it's like 80% of their revenue.
80% from subscription and maintenance?
Maintenance, yeah. So because it's a cloud-based enterprise, so whatever service they're providing to any company, whoever subscribes to them or whoever, they also of course you got to maintain a database that holds the cloud and so on and so forth, right?
Where does the other 20% of the revenue comes from?
That is a good question, because I didn't find that out. So again, it's something again that I have to learn to in regards to researching more.
No, there's no actually what you've done is pretty good. There's no wrong or right to any of the analysis.
Okay.
Quick question, Andre, and to Andre and Jamar. They're more B2B, right? Is it a B2B service or B2C?
That's a good question as well.
I believe so. I can always, I can always double check to see if they're a B2B or a B2C.
And just to jump back to the Enbridge thing real quick,
I imagine there'll be more. It sounds like there'll be more B2B, Farley.
I think so too.
I know it sounds, but yeah.
I was just going to jump back to the Enbridge part, Jamar. I just looked it up while you were talking. So their growth, the growth activity in terms of projects and so forth, looks like it's leaning towards crude oil, liquid pipelines, renewables, and natural gas pipelines, and the processing of the.
Don't be deterred because I just say the whole thing about equity.
No. That's pretty much it. As I said, for me, a lot of it is a learning curve. So, like for me, it's like any additional information or feedback is good. Like if there's something, it's not to say that what I did was incorrect or correct, but if there's more that I can look for, then the advice that you guys give me, then
of course,
that's a work in progress on my end.
Yeah, and the good thing about this exercise is that I can do an analysis, and somebody who is more expert in the field than I am can do an analysis, and we arrive at completely different conclusions and look at different things. So there's no correct way of looking at anything. Seems like someone has their hand up. Let me see. Nope. All right. So this is pretty good, Jamar. So we are going to look at these companies.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so like,
Sorry, who's talking?
My name is Rachel.
Rachel. Okay.
Yeah. So Rachel.
Okay.
So my question is, how do you decrease debt when you make such minimum of money, and then especially that we're in a pandemic?
How do you decrease debt when you don't make enough money?
No, how do you decrease debt when you make such minimum of money? Like, okay, so if anything, some people get paid bi-weekly, some people get paid weekly, and it depends. Everybody's situation is different. And then especially if your credit is not at a certain stage, how do you decrease debt?
All right, that's a good question, and I mean the answer, I guess, from a personal as well as a corporate perspective might be very similar. When you always, this is your strategy. Let's say there's no pandemic, right, and you're in debt. Your objective might be to pay off debt as quickly as possible, especially if you're working towards certain objectives. No, you wouldn't have the same strategy or objective during a pandemic when you're making less, or you're likely to lose. The possibility exists that you might lose your job. You're gonna want to tweak your strategy. So debt repayment, this might sound terrible, but it's the reality. And if you even look at a big company, like if you look at what is going on with Hudson Bay and they're in court with the landlord, debt repayment becomes less of a priority because cash flow is more important, right? So companies and individuals should start looking for a way to preserve as much cash flow as possible while protecting their credit as much as possible. So, so let's say you're in, I don't know, 10 grand worth of debt and you used to pay 500 or 800 per month. then you might want to evaluate that to see if it still makes sense. You probably now also want to have a more aggressive, probably savings and investing strategy during this time rather than debt repayment. Does that make sense? I hope I answered the question there. Rachel, if not, I'll try to go again.
Yes, but I'm kind of like in a shaky stage because you know, I have a financial counselor. I don't mind sharing. I have a financial counselor, and one thing he's encouraging me, like, yes, saving is important because I am saving, like, even if it's a dime or little by little. But if my debt is so high, like, isn't it possible to like invest more into getting out of debt so that way I can be able to have loads of savings?
Well, I mean, you know, of course, the financial counselor has more of a clearer picture of your entire situation than I do. But and I don't know if you have a more permanent and stable income stream, and you know, permanent in quotation. But if what's happening with COVID doesn't materially change your situation, then you probably can continue with the plan that you have to pay off debt aggressively. So it depends on what is going on in your personal life. But you can do you know, things that can you know, help you to pay off that debt faster, right? Such as the investing, right? So you definitely want to have a comprehensive strategy that, you know, that incorporates paying off debt, you know, one that incorporates in saving and investing. Because I'll tell you this, right now, because of everything that's happening with the pandemic, having cash on hand becomes far more important because anything can change in your economic reality, but also opportunities may present itself in the stock market. And if all your money is gone to paying off debt, then you probably won't have any money to, you know, jump on those opportunities, right? Not saying that paying off debt is not important. So you definitely want to pay off as much as possible, but I don't know the full reality of your situation, but you probably want to make sure that you're also saving a good portion of that money. The thing about the recovery that might, in the short run, right, by paying a little less on the debt, you probably will pay more interest in the short run because you're making a lower payment, thus more interest. But when you're investing in the more longer term, as that recovery kicks in, the money invested will appreciate far more in interest, sorry, in capital gains potentially. So in the long run, that short-term loss from the expenses might be offset by the long-term gain. I don't know if that makes sense. So that would be my approach. I wouldn't focus on debt, paying off debt only. I would still have a good mix that focuses on saving and investing.
And the other thing, Rachel, what you want to do is, as we just mentioned prior to that response, the recognition of what is your good debt and your bad debt.
Right.
You want to it's a bad debt you want to get rid of. So, I mean, you might look at all debt as negative right now, but make sure you understand, I don't know how many different sources of debt or lanes of debt you perceive yourself to be in, but make sure you understand each of them. And the other thing I would say to people is communicate with your creditors, like with the people you owe. Right? Communicate. Yeah. Don't go silent. A lot of times people go silent and they see the phone call, the call display, and they like ignore it. The best thing, if you communicate, you have to believe in humanity. As lofty as that sounds, when you communicate with human beings about your circumstance, empathy is in all of us, and it takes communications for empathy to be ignited. Right. And if you stay silent, the empathy is not there at all, because you have no idea. You could, I could, trust me on that.
Thank you so much. Because I was actually thinking to do that this week, is call some of my creditors and like, you know, keep them posted in terms of letting them know what I'm going to do when my, you know, debts are concerned. Just so that I can be able to be on the safe side, that even when the money from somewhere presents itself, like, because I am doing my part by saving and paying debt, and also I'm a student as well. I will contribute. And to add another thing, I know you guys provide scholarships. When will that application begin and come out itself? I don't know. Is it in January or February?
That's a BBPA question. So the BBPA, what level of education are you currently in, if I may ask?
College.
Excellent. Okay. And so what you want to do, go to the BBPA website. I know they just finished their scholarship program for 2020. I'm not sure exactly when it starts, but if you go to the BBPA website, or you could communicate with Roderick or Nadine Spencer, who are directly involved with that. Although I'm on the advisory board, I don't have the detailed information. But if you go to the BBPA website and look at you can even look at the current year and see when the scholarships were launched. That way it'll probably correspond to around the same time of year for next year. But yeah, know that if you're, if you can identify your, obviously how well you're doing academically, what your intentions are, and your need, yeah, those kind of considerations are very helpful. And if you have any further problem, I'll just put my number in the chat for you.
Yes,
and
please.
You can send me a text and I'll forward it to Nadine and Rod, because they're doing a photo shoot right now. So unfortunately, I don't think
that's okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it for the question.
And my name's Farley, by the way. So you'll see my text. My chat.
Okay, thank you.
And another thing I want to add, Rachel, this tool here, for whatever reason, I have it open on my computer. It's a debt calculator. So what you can do is you can go through and you'll pretty much add all of your debt balance. It's creditcanada.com/debt-calculator. And you add all of your debt balance and the interest on them. And it will walk you through it will tell you pretty much like what your monthly payment is in aggregate. It will walk you through the different payment strategies. And it will kind of tell you like how long, based on the payment that you're making here. So if you switch your monthly payment and you put 900, it will calculate and it will tell you how long it will take you to pay off the debt and what your total interest would be for the different debt repayment strategies, right? Minimum payment, snowball. It also talks about the possibility of debt consolidation. So debt consolidation is, putting all of your debt into one and make one payment rather than multiple payments. So it's usually easier to get a debt consolidation loan if you have good income and good credit, right? So this is something that you probably want to look into possibly consolidating the loan if that works, right? But remember, any strategy that you adopt right now will most likely be a short to medium term, probably within the next 6 months to a year, right? So you definitely want to have a balanced approach while you're figuring out your plan. All right.
Are we going to go through Callian or?
Somewhat, huh?
Are we going through this? Okay, I'm just wondering if we're going through Jamai's third.
Yeah, so we're going to go through. All right, so I don't know if anyone else had any other company that they look up, but we're just going to discuss what Jamar has for now. So we're going to take a closer look.
There is Nadine, I believe, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name correctly, has a question in the chat.
Okay.
Right, about, because she said her mic is not working or something of the sort.
Let me take a look at that. See if I can put the chat here. Nadine. All right, so hello, it's working. All right, so I guess Nadine, the big question is, so Nadine came across this site called Net Capital. That seems to be a private platform. They're looking for investors right now. They're offering shares at $4 per share and a minimum invest of 100. Is this something legit to invest? Yeah. So I guess the question is around legitimacy. I am not familiar with this particular company, but you definitely want to do your due diligence, right? So you want to look up this company. A lot of times, just even by asking the same question here on Google, you might get reaction from people. Is Net Capital a legit company? And you might get feedback right away.
And you can also call the Better Business Bureau, right? Because just get it on their radar. Say that you encountered this opportunity. You want to determine the legitimacy of the company,
right?
And even if they've never heard of them, it'll be on their radar, and then you check back periodically and see if they become on their radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely want to do some due diligence.
Yeah, the one thing with the internet, as much as it offers tremendous opportunity, it also is a wide open opportunity for all people with all mindsets, good and bad. So you want to do your due diligence, as Andre said, very, very important.
Yeah, and yeah, you have to be careful of some of those feedbacks that are posted too, because sometimes people will do things to have their feedback at the top that favors whatever they're doing.
Right.
But yeah, call some of the relevant authorities, just like Farley said, and do your due diligence. All right, so let's take a look at Enbridge. I was actually having a conversation yesterday about Enbridge, and I'm myself planning to buy some Enbridge stock. All right. So let's look at some of the quick financials here. So, I hope that everyone is able to read this chart, but for those who are joining for the first time, so this is a stock chart summary, right? And just looking at Enbridge right here, we see that the market price for Enbridge is $37.38. One of the things that I like to look at, so when I look at a chart, the first things that usually stand out to me is the current market price and the 52-week high.
Yeah.
So I want to see how close or how far the current price is in relation to the 52-week high. So that gives me a sense of potential growth opportunity, right? So I know that Enbridge is down, well, almost exactly $20 per share over the 52-week high. So if you were to buy Enbridge and it goes back to 57, you'd make 20 Canadian dollar per share, right? So if you put $5 grand in, and if we were, let's say, to do or co-op investment in Enbridge, and we put the $5 grand and it goes back to 57, it would give us a return of about 5,000 times 20, right? That would be our potential return. So that's some good return right there. So those are some of the quick numbers that stand out to me the first. So I would usually just make a note of the current price and the 52-week high. If it is that you're a dividend investor, and just like Jamar did, he's paying attention to dividend, he looked up the dividend yield. So you'd note that at the time that Jamar did his analysis, the dividend yield is 8.2%. So I'm going to highlight something to you, because as we are looking at the dividend yield right now, it's showing 8.6%. So you're probably saying, why is it that Jamar got 8.2 and it's now saying 8.6 here? Now, the most plausible reason for that is because the dividend yield changes as the stock price changes. So as the stock price goes up, the dividend yield goes down. So perhaps when Jamar did his analysis, the stock price was lower. Sorry, it was higher, which is why it showed 8.2. So did you write down the stock price, Jamar, when you did your analysis for Enbridge? But I'm assuming it was about 38 because Enbridge was up to 38 the other day.
No, so I didn't write it down. That was my mistake, but I didn't write it down.
Okay, no, it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. Just wanted to see if you wrote it down. So yeah, that's why there's a difference it's not a significant difference, but you may come back in like 6 months or so and you'll see the dividend yield at 7-point-something%, right?
Andre, quick question.
Yep.
Is there relevance to paying attention to the 52-week low relative to the current price, and then again relative to the 52-week high?
Yes, there is. It gives us a sense of risk. And
right.
Let's look
of where you are. Yeah.
Where you are, where you might go if it goes south, right? So yes, it does. So you also want to compare the 52-week high to the 52-week low, right? So let's say if we can pull up a random. Well, let me see if I can find a high risk company. Well, let's say this is not high risk, but let's look at Shopify. I know it's not gonna go back to this low anytime soon, but it does open, you have to look at this closely and you're like, okay, if I buy the stock right now at 1,200, what happens if it falls back to 410,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as you're doing your analysis, you have to put that as a potential risk, right? And that will allow you to dig further into the question because of the possibility that it might fall back that low. Not saying that it will, but it will definitely be a red flag as you're doing your analysis, right? So what else did Jamar came up with here? So 8% appreciation in the stock price. Is that year to date, Jamar? Or that was as of recently? It's probably year to date. So looking at the chart, might be a year to date return. But if you look at the 5-year chart of Enbridge, overall they've been going up, right? So they had a high here back in 2017. It went down, then it will continue up on that overall movement of going up. So that overall upward trend. It dropped in 2020. That's because of COVID. So what you'll see this V-like chart movement on pretty much all stock chart, and that is because of the response to COVID. But a lot of these companies had what is called a V-shaped recovery, right? I was actually looking at V-shaped recovery earlier today. So a V-shape is a type of economic recession and recovery that resembles a V. So imagine, the market declining like that and then going up. And usually the recovery is a lot better than the fall when you have a V-shaped recovery. So you'll see that V-shape on a lot of these stock charts. All right, so what else did Jamar come up with here? So stability, yeah. So Enbridge is very stable in terms of growth, right? The stock price doesn't really change that much in terms of wild fluctuations. The dividend is pretty consistent in the sense that they've continually paid a dividend over the years, and they also increase the dividend quite frequently. Now, what Jamar mentioned here about this company and the 60% growth in their dividend, you definitely want to look at if it's sustainable. So that's an important question. But generally speaking, this is a positive because it tells me that the company has the cash to pay the dividend. Remember, cash is king. If they never had the cash, then they wouldn't be paying dividend, right? And dividend typically comes from two places. Either it comes from profit or it comes from a reserve, right? So that would be an indication that the company has the cash to pay dividend, right? So even though you definitely want to examine it further, it can, in most cases, be a positive, right? So what else can we look at here? So even when you do a comparative analysis of Enbridge versus Suncor, if anyone is familiar with Suncor, Enbridge, generally speaking, is more stable in terms of price movement than Suncor. However, in the long term, Suncor might be a better investment than Enbridge, right? So Enbridge is good to ride this short-term volatility. You still get a dividend. There's no major movement in the price. I mean, it's gone to in the 30s now, but that was because of COVID, and it's been slowly recovering. And the dividend has been consistent, but Suncor potentially will offer a lot more capital gains appreciation. Let's look at Suncor stock. So right now it's at 1827. The upside potential is 45, right? 52-week high. Pays some dividend, lower than Enbridge. All right, so what else could we could have looked for in the analysis, Jamar? So we could look at other numbers such as the market capitalization, right? So that tells us the relative size of the company. So Enbridge has a market capitalization of $75.7 billion, right? And if you look at different market size, you'll see market capitalization. You'll see that there are different types of cap, and anything below over a certain amount is considered a large cap, right? So companies are typically divided according to market capitalization. So a large cap is 10 billion or more, a mid cap is 2 billion to 10 billion, and a small cap is 300 million to 2 billion, right? So this tells us the relative strength and safety in terms of our investment. So looking at Enbridge would be a large cap company because it's well above 10 billion. All right. So another thing I'd probably look at is the price earnings ratio. All right. So price earnings ratio tells me how many times an investor is willing to pay for the stock. So, and when I first introduced the concept of PE ratio, I used the analogy of wanting a pair of shoes. So let's say you see somebody with this pair of shoes on the corner and they're like, yo, it's the last pair, or even the PS5 that came out now, and they're like, yo, this is the last one. It's going, the normal price is $5, but you can't get it anywhere else from me. So they might charge you 2 times or 3 times the price of the product because you need it so much, right? The demand for it is there, so they can charge more for it. So that's what the price earnings ratio tells us. How much more investors are willing to pay for the stock. And then to get that number, we look at the earnings per share. So let's look at that. So earnings per share. So technically, right? So from a technical standpoint, one Enbridge share should cost you 96 cents, right? And to get this number, they take the profit of the company and they divide it by the total number of shares outstanding. And that gives them 96 cents. So technically, that's what you should be paying, right? But people like myself and yourself, investors, just like Jumar, like Enbridge, for what it's about and what it offers. And so they are willing to pay 38.94 times more than the actual price. So that is what the PE ratio tells me. So if you were to take this number, the earnings per share, and if you multiply it by PE ratio, which is 38.4, you will get the market price of 37.38. So I'm going to ask everybody to do this calculation. So take your smartphone, multiply 0.96 times 38.4, and tell me if you get 37.38. I want to bore everybody with talking, so let's do some action.
Nice.
All right. All right, so Carlton, while people are doing the calculation, so Carlton has a question or comment?
Yeah, so basically the PE ratio, you could think of it as, and I don't know if this is like what you said in your explanation with the shoes, because I guess my Wi-Fi was acting a bit funny when you were explaining, but could you think of it as just like basically the markup, like when companies mark up a product, because what you pay for it is chances are much more than what the product's actually worth.
And what's that usually based on, Carlton?
Pardon me?
What is that normally based on in the retail side of the world?
Oh, demand.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So it's important to identify that it's the demand, the popularity. Like, there's actually a new, it's very interesting. There's a new social media platform called UTU. And what they're doing is they're integrating it with blockchain, with actual tokens, so that the individual themselves has a market value. So but basically what happens is the more popular you are and the more people will want to be part of your community. So it's divided up into communities. They're in the beta stage right now, but it's a really interesting model because of the integration with blockchain. It's an end around sort of blockchain platform. But if anybody who watches the show Black Mirror, anybody seen that show? So Black Mirror is, you've seen it, Amanda? Monica, sorry.
Monica.
Yeah. So Black Mirror, they often have social media related episodes, and they're futuristic societies where your actual social equity is based on your value to society, right? So and I like that because if we reverse engineer that back to 2020 in our lives, right? We should be saying to our individual selves, right? What is our social equity? How much do we matter to the people around us? Like you look at someone like Andre, for instance, who helps people get out of debt, help them understand financial literacy, et cetera, right? His social equity, right? In terms of his value, what is his value to us on this call, to his family, to his other aspects of business, the lanes of business that he operates in, right? His value, right? If you were to quote unquote invest in Andre, and I've always no, but here's the thing, Andre, I've always said this, because of our circumstances, Black people in this hemisphere, we invest, and remember, time is an investment, right?
100%.
Because if I think on one of the very first sessions, I gave the analogy of there was a preacher in the South somewhere who did an amazing story about if every second was worth $1, there are 86,400 seconds in a day, right? So if every second was worth $1, and every time you wasted time, you lost part of that time the next day. Follow me? So if you got $86,400 every day and you wasted 10 minutes, right? That's 600 seconds, right? 60 seconds times 10, right? So the next day you get 85,800 instead of 86,400. So, so if you look at life from that perspective, right? And then you look at, you integrate someone like Andre, who is bringing benefit to other people's lives, right? His value for time goes up. That's why as a consultant, he can measure, and I often help people with this when they say, Farley, I got an opportunity to do this. How much do I charge? Well, you have to know your self-worth and your value. If you don't know your value, you're going to undercharge. And worse yet, if you don't know you overcharge, you don't get the gig because you're out of the realm of benefit that the person who wants to hire you sees you bringing. Life itself is a transaction. Literally.
That's true.
Oh, and last thing I'll say is, if I always draw reference to the Jewish community, there are 17 million Jewish people on the planet. Most people think there's 50 or 60 or 80 million. It's 17 million. So when you extrapolate those numbers to the influence that the Jewish community has in particular industries, medicine, publishing, entertainment, et cetera, their social equity in terms of the value they bring to other people's lives, in terms of entertainment. So look at all the NBA and NFL teams, predominantly owned by Jewish people. And these are billion-dollar industries. You understand? So when we talk about closing the gap that anti-Black racism, institutionalized and systemic racism has caused, especially in this hemisphere, right? That's where the gap needs to be filled. What do we own? What do we distribute? What do we produce?
Right.
We dance on the stage, we play on the field, we dunk on the court. But if you can pay LeBron James $37 million a year, one of 12 guys on the team, how much is the owner making?
Precisely. Yep.
Get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we have to diversify our interests as human beings.
Yeah.
Right?
And to add to that, so very good, Farley. So I actually, you'll hear me say I post on my status. I post a lot. And I made a post recently about value, right? And I use the 80-20% rule. And I say that 80% of your value is perceived. The remaining 20% is real.
That's
so
right.
There are 20% of people who can actually speak and attest to your value because they've worked with you directly. The rest of it is what you put out there and how people view you. It's just like products. You probably never use certain products or services, but because you hear everybody talking about it, you perceive the value to be higher than it actually is.
That's right.
And so whatever you are putting out there, that's how people are going to perceive you. Right. The other thing that I learned off, because part of me getting to this point where I can talk about financial literacy was unlearning a lot of the things that I already learned and learning new things. And I came across two concepts. One of them is the other people's time, which is OPT, and other people's money. And Farley just mentioned that with the basketball player, if LeBron is making 37, how much is the owner making? The owner is making money using the player's time, right? The banks use other people's money to make more money, right? So you need to learn a lot about those two concepts and how you can use and leverage other people's time and other people's money to make more money for yourself.
Absolutely. Right? You know, that passive income, for instance, when you invest in properly or you engage in the right business transactions, you should be making money while you're sleeping.
Precisely.
right? And that's very effective use of your time.
Very effective. Exactly. Yeah. You have to account for that, and a lot of people don't account for the time that they sleep. That's time that your money could be working for you and making more money, right? So your money, I initially subscribed to this notion that Black people had to work twice as hard. No. Your money have to work twice as hard, right? So that's part of the unlearning process that I had to go through.
There's a Netflix show called The Social Experiment, if anybody's seen it. And one of the gentlemen who was the initial investor, I think he was an initial investor in Twitter, right? He does absolutely nothing. When I say nothing, in terms of his time, because he got in with Twitter, right, at the right time, and he's been an investor, I think it's Twitter. Yeah, it might be Facebook, but I'm pretty sure it's Twitter. And like the amount of money he's amassed in his sleep, right? He just plays, like he just plays, you know what I mean? Like it's incredible. So that's the goal. And well, you know, the goal to an extent. There are other social factors for Black people, but besides that, just gives you an understanding of in very clever and effective use of your time and efficient use of your time.
100%. All right, so let's, what are some of the other things that we could look at here in terms of Enbridge? And we're gonna go to the other stocks, in the other companies in a few minutes. So when it comes on to investing, and these are additional things that you can look at, is that you want to look at price, which we've already looked at, and we looked at the current market price. We looked at the PE ratio in the sense of how much people are willing to pay. But you can also look at volume, right? And when I say volume, I'm talking about the volume of stocks that are traded, right? And even if it's short-term or long-term investing, you definitely want to look at volume, right? So the volume of stocks trading for Enbridge is 19.2 million, right? 19.2 million stocks moving around on the stock exchange. The average, when they looked at that movement over a period of time, is 7 million, 7.8 million. Now I'm going to look up another company, and I think I brought up this company before, and I think everyone was wowed, and I'm going to do it again. Burp. All right, so this one stock is worth 341,000 US dollars. This is the most expensive stock in the world, by the way, and it's owned by Warren Buffett.
Buffettology, read it, everyone. Buffettology.
So look, let's. I actually read a. You know what? I looked at some of the conversations. So under the stock, you'll see something about conversation, and I believe it was here that I looked up one of the conversation, and I saw this woman said that she just mortgaged her house to buy one stock. At the time, the stock price was actually went up now. It was oh, this is the cheaper version. 1 second. It was yeah, so it went up big time. So you look at this, 1% gain is $6,500. When she bought the stock, the recession came, so she bought the stock just before the pandemic. And I imagine how she felt, because this stock price went in the low of 200,000 and she bought it in the 300,000. Anyways, so let's look at the this one is class A. So let's look at the class A. That's class B there. I'm not sure why the A is not popping up. I'll look at the volume. I'm trying to pull up the information about the class A, but it's not showing here. All right, let's use class B and look. Yeah, that one is not reflecting what I want. BRK. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's look at the volume. Can you see the big difference? So there are 272 stocks trading, right? 300. The average volume is 360. Now, what this is telling me is that if I want to sell my stock, I'm limited to potentially 272 buyers, right? So that reduces my chance of selling the stock because there are not many people buying and selling this stock. It reduces my chance of getting in. It reduces my chance of getting out. So you probably spend many months, and it doesn't matter which pandemic is coming.
Right.
It's probably going to be hard to get out. And the people who own the company might sell off all their position and leave you, or whatever. They might do things to get their money out while you're stuck in it. Anyways, so yeah, that's why you need to pay attention to volume when you're looking to invest for the short term or the long term. Volume is a pretty good.
It determines liquidity, right? Because you talk about
liquidity,
Jamar,
right?
Yeah, Jamar, you spoke about liquidity as one of your analytical points, right? So, if depending on your circumstance, of course, liquidity might be a high on your list of priorities. But again, as Andre just showed with Berkshire, if you can afford, like this lady mortgages her house, but let's say somebody can actually afford, they're liquid enough to afford purchasing the stock. And once they do get it, they're not thinking about, I got to get out. I'm gonna buy some Berkshire, but I want to get out by November 30th.
Yeah,
not gonna happen.
Exactly. Not
gonna happen. You know what I'm saying?
As you were talking, Farley, something came to my mind about buying and affordability, because I think sometimes we mix up the two. So not because this woman buy the property means she can afford it. When you can afford something, you can lose it without major consequence.
That's right.
Right. And so I just want to put that out there, because a lot of times, even when we get this brand new luxury car, we say, yo, we can afford it, so we buy it. All right. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, it's a great point. Great point.
All right. So looking back at this, we say, all right, now we feel better, right? Because the 19.2 million versus 272. So we looked at price, right? The price of the stock. We looked at, okay, so two participants want to say something. Let's see who those people are. So let's start with Monica. Actually, let me see. Monica, yep. And who's the other person?
Hey, Monica.
Monica and then Jordan. All right, so Monica, you can go first. You probably unmute Monica.
She took herself off me. Try again, Monica. I just saw your mute sign go off.
Not hearing.
Oh no, you're on. Now you're off. Try.
Not hearing.
That's weird.
All right, it's probably type the question. All right, so Jordan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Jordan, did you want to go?
Yeah, I'm new to this, so I just want to introduce myself.
Oh, excellent. Welcome.
Hi. As you can probably tell, my name's Jordan, and I'm 15 years old, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
And I'm really interested in the course. So.
All right, welcome, Jordan. Big up yourself. Big up all the Toronto peeps in the house. I'm from Brampton, so.
Oh, you're funny. I love what you said. Yeah, we welcome all of our people from coast to coast, as the great Spider Jones says, from coast to coast, like hot butter on breakfast toast. Yeah, everybody, we've had people come from outside of Canada and participating as well. Yep. So welcome, Jordan. As Andre said, big up yourself, because taking the step to learn more, be more edified in whatever you're interested in is the first step to what we truly should define as freedom. So welcome wholeheartedly.
All right. So Monica's question. So the question for Monica. So she said she didn't fully understand the volume. I didn't completely understand the volume. The higher the volume, the easier it is to sell, but harder it is to buy. All right, so let me rephrase that so that it's clear for everyone. So when you have more volume, think of it as buyers and sellers, right? So if I were to go to Lawrence Market, which I don't, but if I were to go and I'm trying to buy a loaf of bread, right? And there's only one, let's say there's one seller of that bread, right? But then I have two buyers. So one seller, two buyers, right? And I go there and I'm trying to buy that bread. Now it's gonna have a pretty much a competition to buy that loaf of bread, because it's gonna be either me or the other person. So now it's up to that seller to say whether or not they're gonna sell that bread for that current price, or they're gonna charge more, right? Because of the competition, right? So when you have that level of competition, right? Because there's so many people that are interested in buying this stock, but there's not enough stocks, right? So the first thing, it drives the price up, right? So it becomes more expensive. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Monica, is that when you have lower volume, like in the example we used, 272, it's harder to get in, right? So think of it as this market vendor, they're thinking how they're gonna sell it, like how much they're gonna sell it for, whether or not you're worthy of even buying it, or so there's so many factors that this person now has to consider as to whether or not you're gonna get in. So it might be harder to pick up that loaf of bread. Whereas if you were to go to, let's say, another grocery store like Loblaws, where they have a big shelf of all kind of bread, you know what? Yeah, I'm over that bread. I'm just gonna go buy one in Loblaws and pick up where there's competition. So where there's more supply, it's easier to get what you want, right? Because of that supply. And on the flip side, on the sell side, where there's more supply, it's easier, where there are more customers, it's easier to sell to those customers. So in the case of the volume here, because we only had 272 stocks being traded, it will be harder to buy. And if I do buy, it becomes harder to sell, right? Because how easy it is to find somebody with 341,000 US dollars, right? To buy this stock. And if we were to convert 341,000 US to Canadian, it becomes even more expensive for Canadians to buy 341,000 USD. So because the price is so high, it forces down the volume of the trade. That's 448,000 Canadian. So because of this high price, it discourages people from wanting to buy, because not many people can afford this.
It discourages and excludes people.
And exclude, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you have more volume, it attracts far more people, right? Because of the amount of shares outstanding. Go back, I have too many tabs open here. So like this one, 19.2 million. So imagine you want to sell this one stock for 37.38. If there are 19.2 million people versus 200, then you're more likely to get it sold, right? And the same with buying. Does that make sense, Monica?
Yes. I chose another device. Can you hear me here?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the volume is the amount of stocks that are trying to get sold, and the average volume is the amount of people that are trying to buy them.
The average, both of them are the stocks that are, it's between buying and selling, right? So it's going back and forth.
So is it a ratio or is it a value, the volume?
So sorry, repeat your question, because I think I understood where you're coming from. So you said the volume, is it the amount of stocks that are being bought, available to buy?
Yes. Or
yes. Your question just resonated. Yes, you're correct. So the volume is the amount of stocks available to be bought.
Okay, and then the average volume is the amount of stocks that are trying to get bought, that people have bought or trying to buy.
Oh, you mean the activity?
Yes, kind of, yes.
Yeah. So what Andre is saying is that the volume of stocks and of trades, the larger, the more accessible it is to someone who's interested. The lower the volume, the more difficult. So it's like a Bentley versus a Honda, right? If I go out today and I say, I'm going to buy a Bentley, there's no Bentley dealership in Ajax, Pickering, Oshawa, the area that I live. I have to go downtown specifically to get it. And let's say I don't have a car. I got to, it's a whole different thing. But there's probably 300 dealerships in Durham. So the volume is greater and therefore more easily accessible and therefore a lot cheaper.
Okay, so just to rephrase and my question, the volume is the amount of stocks that are available.
To buy or sell, yeah.
To buy, yeah. The average, Monica, so what they do, so every day the volume of stocks traded is not going to be the same, right? The volume of stocks available to be bought is not going to be the same. So let's say on Monday, for example, you go on the stock market, it's 19 million. Then Tuesday, it's 10 million. Then Wednesday, it's 8 million. And Thursday, it's back up to 10. Friday, it's 10 again. So the average is the average is the total amount of stock for that week. So you add up the total volume that traded each day and you divide it by 5. So that's the average. So the average is the total of the stocks traded for a period of time divided by that period. So that's how they come up with the average. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the volume is the amount of traded stocks.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say on day 1, right? It's one stock. Day 2, it's 10. Day 3, it's 4. So to get the average volume, it would be equal to the 4 plus 10 plus 1, so that's 15 divided by 3, right? And 3 divided by 15, that's what, 5? So the average volume would be 5. So that's how they come up with the volume. It's the total of the amount of stocks outstanding divided by whatever period that they use.
Okay, and Carlton asked the question in the chat. He said, so average volume is calculated on a weekly basis?
I am not sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure what Yahoo Finance used to determine the average here. I'm not sure what period of time they're looking at. Oh,
thank you.
Well, let me see if it changes. Actually, yeah, no, it doesn't change with the 5 days. So yeah, I'm not sure what period they're using, Carlton. I don't know if this is a 1 year or, but that's something that you could probably Google on the side. If it's calculated on a week, yeah. So that's something you probably could calculate on the side or Google to see whether or not, like, what time period they use, if it's weekly or you can just watch it for a week and see. I don't know. All right, so good questions that are coming up. I like the discussion. All right, so we looked at price, we looked at volume. So the other thing is that we want to look at quantity, right? And so quantity would be a decision that you would have to make in terms of the investor. And quantity is how many of the stocks that you want to buy, right? So, you know, it could be 10, it could be 100, it could be 10,000. And that will help you with your return, right? So if you were to buy, if your quantity, now let's say we have 5,000 for the corp investment, right? To invest $5,000, right? And the current stock price is 37.38. Can one of my experienced investors tell me what that is? Do the calculation. 37.38. So just divide 5,000 by 37.38. Post it in the chat. And let me just write the formula here. So to get quantity, it's, okay, 182, thank you. So we can buy 182. So in Canada, fractional ownership is not allowed and we can't round up. So we're just gonna say 182. Oh, they're different numbers. Hold on, I'm getting 133 and 182. Okay, 133, perfect. All right, so it's the amount we have to invest divided by market price, okay? Per stock share. That's how we calculate the quantity. So 5,000 divided by 37.38. The other thing is we could have taken out the commission because we know that there would probably be a commission of about $10. So you can deduct the commission from the 5,000, which would give you a different number. Or you can just add $10 if you have $10, so 5,010. And that gives us the quantity that we can buy, right? So from here on, we can easily calculate the percentage return on our investment. So if you were to go in the account and it says 20% to date, so we know that 5,000, if we invest 5,000 today, and it, let's say by next year, this time it's a 20% return, we can calculate that. So there are two ways to calculate this. We can say 5,000 times 20% equal X amount. divide by 100. The easiest way, so because I did accounting, there's a lot of calculations, so I always look for the easiest way to calculate things. We can say 5,000 times 0.2. So if you do 5,000 times 5,000 times 0.2, it gives you the immediate number. So how much is that if we were to make a 20% return on this stock? 1,000? All right, perfect. So we make $1,000. All right, so that would be our return, how the return is calculated. So that's why the quantity is important. So you have to figure out, divided by 1. Is 10?
Because you said that 5,000
times 20. Sorry, not 20%, times 20.
Okay, times 20 divided by 100. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you put the percentage, it's going to give you, sorry, it's times 20 divided by 100. Thanks for that correction. But the easiest way is to just convert the convert the percentage to decimal, right? So yeah, if you go back to those days when you had to convert to decimal, you know, it's 100, so you start from the right and you move 2 points forward. Hey, I remember those days.
Old school.
Yeah, old school. All right. Or look at this easier way. I'm going to give you a third way because we can learn some maths too. So this was when I was doing high school math. So if it is, I drop the 0 based on what I am calculating to arrive at the amount. So if I'm dividing by 100, there are 2 zeros.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drop, how much 0 am I going to drop? I'm going to drop 1, that's true. That's where I go?
2.
Is it?
You drop 2.
Drop 2. Yeah, so you drop 2.
Both zeros. One more.
No, what, so?
Yeah, and then you
2
times
zeros.
that.
By 5.
2 0. All right, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you drop 2 0 if you are divided by that, right?
Yeah.
And if it's 1,000, you drop the 3 0, so it's 5. So that's another easy way. You just drop the 0. So whatever the denominator is, you just drop the zeros. So you have some easy ways. And another way, actually, I'm getting a third way when you do maths. So here's my thing. Maybe go on another shortcut. So if you're doing 5,000 times, let's say it's and this is for multiple choice. This is how I do multiple choice sometimes when I don't know. Let's say it's 8%. What I do is that I take 5% first because it's easier to determine a level number. So 5% of 5,000. How much is that? So if it's 10, we'll drop 1 0, right? So if it's 10, you drop 1 0. That means it's 500. So 5% of 500 would be 250 because it's half of the 10%. So 250. So I know that in the answer, it must be greater than 250. So because it's 8%, I'll take the outstanding 4%. I know that 5% was 250. So the remaining 4% must be what? It must be close to 250.
3%, Andre, 3.
Sorry, 3%, my bad. Sydney, I'll get mixed up. The remaining 3% would be somewhat close, right? So it'd be about 2 something. So the answer should be in the 400 range or 480, for whatever. Anyways.
Or 4, exactly.
That's how I usually work my maths then. Because you know, like in CXC, that you weren't allowed to use a calculator.
Right.
So I'm giving you some free math lessons.
For the young folks out there, and possibly even younger than you, Monica, is quantum computing. The basis of quantum computing is getting the answer, not the process by which you choose to get it. So what Andre just did there, if he and I were in the same math class and the teacher taught us a particular way to get to that answer, one of us would get the right answer, but we lose marks for not taking the right process. But with quantum computing, and with the way education is moving, they're going to start focusing on the individual's ability to come up with the answer, not the process by which they came to the answer. You know, I think I don't know if I mentioned it before, there's a young man, he's probably in his 20s now, but when he was 8 years old, he's a kid from the Congo who figured out how to create an apparatus for his mother to be able to open and close her hand because she had a disability in her hand, and he had 4 or 5 younger siblings, even at 8 years old. So he's now part of what's called the Einstein Institute that the guys who own BlackBerry control. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you get to the answer. It's a fact that you consistently can get there.
get there, right?
Not to
And I agree with that because there's so many ways to arrive at the same answer. But as you can see, my math was a bit rusty, so I apologize. I haven't done those calculations in a while, but you know, you can see
That's
the
what
process.
technology does, right?
That exactly. All right. So we're gonna look at the other one that is this the one Jumar Sylogist or Sylogist? How do you pronounce that? I don't know.
No, he had a different spelling. He had Logit DT.
No, that's the one. I
Yeah, the spelling was off. That
Oh, you misspelled it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sylogist or syllogist, I guess.
Yeah.
Syllogist.
And it's a IT service company. So, you know, one of the things that we mentioned last week is to look at the business model. We would definitely need more information here about the business model because it only says IT services, right? So IT services is pretty broad. So that wouldn't give us a good understanding of the business model. And I think Jumar went and dig more and found out that it's cloud-based solutions, right?
Yeah.
So on the website, it only said IT service. So Jumar dug deeper and came up with cloud-based computing. So let's look at some of the quick financials here. And sorry, let me just plug in my computer.
So we'll call Jamar. We'll call that deep due diligence.
Yeah, we need. Did anyone else do the assignment? Because only Jumar gave 3 companies, and we definitely need a few more options to.
Yeah, you know, we want some diversity of opinion,
Right.
guys, and perspective. That's how we all grow. We have
All
to
right.
hear from each other.
Exactly. So Camille has one. So we're going to look at the one that Camille has after this one. So let's just do some quick looks because we've looked at a few factors just now. So we know some of the things that we can quickly look out for. So we want to look at the current market price, right? To buy it, it's 10.68 per share. Quickly look at the 52-week high. So we see that it's pretty close to the 52-week high, right?
Mm-hmm.
The risk right now is about 40% thereabout, right? The difference between the 1190 and the 616 is about 40% in terms of, you know, like the 52-week low and the 52-week high. We also looked at the market cap. So we see that this is a pretty low cap, right? Which might be an indication of risk or the fact that this is a newer company and it doesn't have the market share like some of the larger companies. So we definitely want to look at the level of risk, and I'll show you how we can look at that risk. But the good thing is that they're paying dividend at 4.68. So it seems like they have a good cash flow. And so let's look into some of the finance quickly. All right, so beta is 0.34. So for those who don't know, beta is a measure of risk, right? The closer beta is to 1, the less riskier the company is, right? The further away from 1 it is, the more riskier. Anything below 1 is low risk, right? So looking at the risk measurement here, this would be it's telling us that it's a low risk, right? This beta. We didn't look at that with Enbridge just now, but that is what that tells us. Now, here's another crazy part that we are going to have to, because we would have to go through some kind of process of elimination. And in one of the sessions, we talked about value-based investing, right? This is where you look at the value of the company. And to do that, we look at the PE ratio and the earnings per share. Right now, it's ridiculous because the earnings is 8 cents, but people are willing to pay 131.85 times.
Wow.
Right? So we know that this is definitely not a value company, but I think it could be the potential for growth. And I don't know if Jumar mentioned that, but subscription and internet, okay.
That's what I was going to say when you mentioned the risk. The risk is also an indication of potential. And
right.
then you do your analysis is what brings you the confidence.
Precisely. So this is something you definitely want to take a look at the growth potential, because if people are willing to pay 131 times, it's probably an indication that the potential for growth is huge. So you want to do that analysis. And remember, in the chart, one of the factors that we looked at was future growth when we're looking at our fundamental analysis, right? All right, so what else can we look at? So the volume, pretty low volume, right? The average is about 27,000. You know what, Carlton, just looking at this, I'm thinking the volume that they are showing here is weekly. And this volume would have been as at Friday, the last trading date, and this was for the week. That would be my educated guess, looking at the chart, that they update the volume numbers on a weekly basis.
Yep.
All right. So again, so we'd have to look more into this company to see whether or not it's a growth company. The risk seems low, right? Based on what we're seeing here. The growth opportunity, this might be a very good growth stock. And as we see with a lot of growth companies like Shopify and Amazon, they have the potential to grow significantly, bigly. You know, you can go bigly. All right. So let's look at Pfizer. I got that pronunciation wrong at the first. You know, I never understood why they put the P in front of the.
Yeah, I'm not sure what where they got their name from. If it's an individual or.
Yeah, it's
I'll look it up.
It'll be interesting.
I'm like you, I'm curious about certain things.
Yeah. All right. So I've gotten a ton of questions about this. So we're getting it here. It's brought up here as a potential stock by Camille. And I had about 4 people ask me, is it a good investment? Is it a good investment? Well, off the surface, it seems like it is. And a lot of people are banking on Pfizer right now because they're ahead in terms of the vaccine, right? And as we know, the vaccine is going to be a big part of the economic recovery. And this company stands to gain a lot. This company and Moderna stands to gain a lot from that portion of the recovery, the distribution of the vaccine. All right, so let's look at some of the quick financials here. So let's see how they were doing prior to this whole vaccine thing. So it seemed like they were doing relatively good over the past few years. So they've been on an upward trend, right? So looking at this was probably 2016 numbers, 36. They had a decline there, but overall it's been on an upward trend, right? We can see that in 2019, even prior to the vaccine, right? They've been on an upward trend. Now, the question of growth, of course, stands out to me because looking at the current price of 38.62 and 41, it's pretty close to the 52-week high. But as we know, the possibility that this can go higher because of the vaccine news does exist. Right? But overall, it's stable. There hasn't been any major decline in the stock price over the past 5 years. It does offer growth. And looking at the market capitalization, it's a huge company. It's even bigger than Enbridge, right? 214 billion market capitalization.
Can I throw a wrench? Can I throw a wrench or fly into the ointment?
Yeah.
Yes. First of all, just quickly, the company's named after Charles Pfizer, who was a German immigrant, and another gentleman, but it was named after Pfizer. His partner was Charles Eckhart.
And was Pfizer spelled with a P or just?
Yeah, that's the German spelling, P-F-I-Z-E-R, right? But the fly in the ointment is one of the things those who are really, I'll say, socially conscious from an Afrocentric lens, you might want to look into the other products that Pfizer makes, which I believe, don't quote me on this, include a lot of the medication that they give to our Black youth. When they say we have ADD, ADHD, and all these things, and they advise Black parents to medicate their children, right? So I'm just letting you know that as Jamar did, there are additional depths that we can go to. Excuse my list. Right, the different depths that we can go to depending on who we are as individual. That's as individuals. That's what I'm saying. Know your values, know your value, and know what matters to you. Because you might make, let's say you make $100,000 investing in Pfizer, but at the same time, your next door neighbor's child's been diagnosed with ADHD, and they've got him on Ritalin because he's a Black kid, by the way, not because of his behavior or her.
Yeah.
Right. So just be mindful if you choose to be mindful. It's not an order or a suggestion. It's just something to put out there depending on your realm of consciousness and the depth of concern you have for what's happening in our community at every level.
Thanks, Farley. Thanks for that. Thanks for that piece of education, Farley. Appreciate it.
That's a good piece of information because for me personally, I put value in my decisions when I invest. Even if
Absolutely.
it's quick or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's me personally, I put that in my
Could I
decision-making.
could I add a quick?
Bertha president brought up a good point just now about this company, and it's still being looked at. It's interesting to see what is going to happen with that. Is that the CEO just sold off a major portion of their position in the company, right? So that's you know, once that happens, you know, it catches the attention of the SEC and all those people, because they want to see if any insider trading. But they were saying that he made the filing or whatever to plan to sell since August. But it's interesting to know why the CEO decided to sell. It's you know, off the surface it seemed like a bad thing, right? Because you're like, okay, if this is going up, why would you want to sell? But there might be more to the story. So I definitely look into that to see.
I love that, man. That's when it gets
point, Bertha.
Anybody who thinks investment is boring, man, that's the stuff you get into when you find that out. But I think it was Carlton, was it you that was going to say something?
Actually, Sankofa.
Oh, Sankofa, my brother. How you doing, my brother?
Great. I just wanted to just say, echo that idea that I see everything through an Afrocentric lens. So, you know, no matter the good or the bad or the ugly, we need to ask the question so we can reflect. So Shell Gas had gone to Nigeria in the Ogoni region and caused devastating impact on the community.
Right.
So for my own personal thoughts, I hadn't bought Shell Gas in years, you know, and then the question was, you know, would I ever buy that stock? And then I was no. And then, you know, a couple of days ago, as I got older, 20, 30 years later, I'm thinking maybe we should buy the stock and then buy enough stock to control it and then sue, you know what I mean? So there's also other strategies that you could employ. So it's not necessarily just monolithic anymore as you get older.
Very good point. And just to dovetail on that, it really relates to how collectively we can act, Sankofa, right? You know, we have to do our best to, you know, get at least a critical mass of us would have to purchase the stock to have any influence whatsoever, because obviously Shell is a big company and you know, high. I mean, I imagine their volume would be pretty high too, potentially. But anyway, yeah, so your point's well taken. I think just always include some sort of moral, as Andre said, he invests based on his human, like his ethics and his values and so on and so forth. I'm the same. Like to me, I'm not supporting anything that has any element of detriment to our people. I remember years ago, I was asked to do a Dairy Queen Blizzard commercial, and I looked it up, and the small Blizzard has 1,800 calories. Right. And they wanted me to do a commercial. And I know that, you know, these things are killing our kids, like straight up. So I'll tell you guys, it was a $50,000 offer and I turned it down. Just like with anti-Black racism, we get companies calling us to say, yeah, could you come and provide us with an hour and a half of anti-Black racism training? And we turn those down because you cannot impact anybody in an hour and a half on something so deep and meaningful and culturally entrenched, by the way. So same sort of thing. You have to have ethics to feel good at night, wake up in the morning with energy. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, you'll carry that burden and it'll come back at you in some way, shape, or form.
100%. Yeah, no, it's very important. And I'm glad that came up in the discussion, because we want to keep that in mind as we are investing in these companies, right?
Absolutely.
I saw one stock, I saw Camille mention another one, AMD. So we're going to quickly look at that. Because we're running out of time. I don't know how I feel about this one, Camille. AMC is in my view, I think it's a dying company. Oh, AMD, sorry. I thought it said AMC. Is it AMC you said or AMD? AMD, okay. All right. There you go, I stand corrected. So, because AMC, let's look at AMC. AMC is
the theaters.
Movie theaters.
Oh yeah, they're pretty well done, right?
Yeah, that's, but this is Camille. Camille, I should let Camille talk about this one.
Absolutely. Where are you, Camille?
He was in it from the early stages.
Oh man, you called me on the spot. Let's see, AMD, I've had it for about 2 years.
Okay.
And because I used to do in university, I used to do like a virtual stock market. I had that AMD in it since then, and I've noticed that it has gone up drastically.
What
And
price did you get it at?
I got it at 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now it's at 81.
Yep.
Excellent.
However, I was the type of person that was scared to continue to get it, and I was trying to be greedy and get more. When everything dropped, I was like, all right, let me just wait till it gets to 30 so I can just balance out everything and watch it go up. But as you can see, it didn't go that far down. But I just been getting AMD because it's a growth stock, and it's a competitor with Intel. Even though Intel is just as great as AMD, I've been seeing some articles saying how they've purchased a new company. So I know that they've gone down just a little bit, but it's guaranteed to go back up.
Yeah.
And stuff. And their growth has been doing well for the last 5 years. Like it's gone up significantly. So I have been looking at that with the financials.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
so this is one of my favorites. It's been holding down my portfolio for the longest time. So I'm just gonna be doing the average cost per share. As much as I missed out on great opportunities when it was going up, I'm just gonna keep riding with it. It's a long term.
It's a long term. I was just gonna say that it's a long term, and I love what you shared, Camille, in terms of your interest, your passion for it. Like we have to remember we're human beings. We feel, and you need to have a certain energy around the decisions you make.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And and I think sticking with it in this particular case from your perspective, right, is a healthy thing because you have an intrinsic understanding of it through your mock. We did that. I mean, when I was studying finance in university, that was one of the great things about the school I went to. We got a lot of mock scenarios that were identical to reality, so you felt the pain, but you also felt the joy of succeeding and making the right decision. And again, if you're not jeopardizing your quote unquote livelihood, then it's fantastic, right?
Exactly. And like now, even though I have like a laptop with Intel, I bought a desktop that had AMD. I was like, I'm gonna make sure I spend stuff on it to make it keep going.
And you mentioned you're just gonna do some average costing, Camille. Can you tell us what that means? So
because I have it, I got it at 13, and it's gone up drastically. There's gonna be a time when I'm gonna get it at 81, or if it goes down to 70, it's just going to basically, let's see, let me do the math because it's a math class today. So basically, if I balance it out, my average cost per share was going to be 47. So no matter what, I'm still going to be gaining profit.
Yeah.
Even if I buy it at this amount. So because I'm going to be doing it long term, the average is always
So the average cost, like when you initially enter the stock, the price that you bought it at, if you buy more at a different price, the computer pretty much averages the price. However, you still protect those gains, initial gains that you made when you just invested, and it just keep going up from there.
Yeah. So I'm working on that.
All right. And again, when we look at that, even with profit and calculating our profit, there are always three things at play: quantity, price, volume. Again, those are key to investing. So I didn't see, thanks for that, Camille. I didn't see anyone else sharing any other company that they've looked up. Is it that we're scared to share, or we weren't able to get to the assignment? So remember, there's no wrong or right answer.
It's all about learning, guys, and experiencing.
Carlton.
Yeah, so I missed the past couple of Saturdays just because I had conflicts with other things I had going on those days. So I didn't look as much into specific companies, if I were present in those sessions, but I did look into a bit just sectors and sort of wrote down potential companies. Again, didn't look too deep into it in terms of like the numbers, facts, figures, and whatnot.
Yeah.
And especially like some of these companies, I'm sure aren't based in Canada. But just to start off with sector, some of the sectors that I considered was number one, healthcare. So as we were just talking about it for a good amount of this session, just talking about the vaccine, who's in the lead to produce it and provide it to the public. I looked at education,
right?
Most specifically online platforms, because I think, me personally, even when this vaccine begins to come out, there's going to be more dependency on online learning platforms. One of those learning platforms being D2L. I'll put it into the chat after my whole speech here. And then the third sector I looked at was, I guess maybe a more risky sector to look at is the video game industry. Specifically in regards to like streaming services. So like I know Twitch, I think has gained traction ever since this whole pandemic started. So those are the three sectors that I looked at: health, education, and I guess like the gaming industry.
Let's talk about gaming for a second, Carlton. Why do you think it's risky?
I think because eventually when we do get back to some sort of normalcy, maybe, students, kids may not have as much time or access to be able to invest themselves in those streaming services. So for example, whenever it might be when students get back to being in school, normal hours of the day on a regular basis, they may not have as much time or as much access to things such as Twitch.
True. So being in the industry, I'll say to you that one of the considerations you might want to add to your analysis is the addictive nature of gaming as well. So if you look at the growth of gaming prior to the and this is an interesting way to analyze this. If you look at the interest, global interest in gaming, the increase in female participation as well, because a lot of people think when you say NBA 2K, people think it's all boys. It's actually it's approaching 40% female now, which is huge, right? This is all prior to the pandemic, right? So now with the pandemic giving people, like you said, people have more time on their hands, so they're playing more. But alongside that playing comes the addictive nature of the pastime. Right? So you have to quantify the impact that the addictive nature of it will have on the time that's spent and how they work symbiotically. Then coming out of the pandemic, the other variable is we don't know what the educational world will look like. Is it going to go back 100% to where it was or 50% to where it was? Some students are thriving in e-learning. And remember, if you guys remember, Doug Ford was pushing for e-learning prior to the pandemic. And the school board, the school unions were resisting on behalf of the teachers. And then COVID came along and they were forced into it, right? And this is where, again, when we look at things from an Afrocentric lens, this is the moral side, how well are our youth doing in the e-learning process and so on and so forth. But in terms of the gaming itself, the things to be mindful of is the increase in the pastime, in the free time that is being occupied by the gaming participation. Is that less or more of an impact than the addictive aspect of gaming? Because many kids spend 7 hours a day gaming. right? But while that's happening, if they go back down to 4 because school comes back, how do we analyze the amount of people that weren't gaming much and now are coming up to the average amount of time spent gaming? So it's very complicated, right? Andrea, I know I don't know if you know gaming, but think of it in terms of.
I'm invested in a gaming company now.
Excellent.
Yeah,
so so those factors that I'm bringing to the table, I don't know if you have a perspective on that, but I love looking.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
This is the company that I'm invested in. I definitely agree with you on that front. And I think Camille brought up a point too about they'll make the time, right? Even if it's school, it doesn't matter what, they're gonna make the time. You know what? And we've seen one of the biggest thing that I've recognized with a lot of the gaming companies, the bigger ones like Zynga, is that they're acquiring a lot of these smaller companies, right? So the growth opportunities for these companies, I think they're huge. And COVID really opened up a lot of markets for these companies, especially in education. You mentioned education, but on the flip side to that, a lot of kids learn through these interactive gaming things. And we could potentially see partnerships coming out of with these companies and offering gaming solutions to school. I mean, we don't know, but there are just so many possibilities. So I agree with Farley and Camille. You know, it's not a bad prediction, Carlton. That's your observation. That's the beauty about stocks, is that we don't know which direction it's going to go, right? But that is part of your analysis. One thing I want to do actually before we run out of time is we want to decide on some of the companies so that we can examine them more closely.
Yeah.
Well, we knew that Jumar recommended Enbridge, right? That's his number one. I think
that's a really good one from my.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm about Enbridge too. So Jumar chose Enbridge, and then we had 2 from Camille. So because we're doing this as a collective and based on the point that Farley raised, so we're not going to look at Pfizer. I don't know if Farley agrees with that, or.
Yeah, no, it's still a democracy. I just wanted to offer him.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things I'll do just briefly is that people can make the best decisions when they know all of the options, right?
Okay.
And on all of the the perspectives, right? Rather than being narrow and making a decision and regretting it later, right? Because
Oh, sorry, who was it who said Pfizer? Camille said it's not her, so let me go back.
Carnell said it. Carnell.
Okay. Hey, Carnell, yeah, push the Pfizer stock from when? I have a message about the Pfizer stock. All right, so we have Enbridge from Jumar, and by no means am I ranking these.
You've cut off.
We have Pfizer from Carnell, and then we have
Okay, so I feel like I'm the Captain Negativity today. The other thing with Enbridge that I think it's a good one, but I want to throw this out there again. I want people to have all the information. Somebody or anybody who has an affinity or an appreciation for our Indigenous brothers and sisters, please check and see if Enbridge is negatively impacting our Indigenous brothers and sisters on the land that they occupy. Okay, very important.
I knew that's what you were coming with, because
because they're our closest allies. whether we interact fully in oppression, they are our closest allies. So be mindful of that. I don't know if Sankofa has any insight on that, but I mean, I just encourage you guys to investigate thoroughly.
All right.
I think we should do
so
that.
What I'm going to do for the vote, so we're going to do more analysis, but I actually want to narrow it down today, because how many companies we're planning to invest? Are we going to invest in all of these, or just 2 of them?
Well, that's what we have to decide collectively, is what is the sensibility around being too diverse.
Yeah. So I was thinking we can do a vote.
Exactly. That's what I think as well.
So, all right. So for those who say, so what you can do is just I'll lower Carlton's hand. So for everybody that thinks that we should invest in more than one company, just give me a raise of hand. I'll look through all the participants to see. So those who say that we should diversify, just raise your hand and the thing. Use the raise hand feature so that I can look through and see. So more than one company. We should invest in more than one company. That's the first part. So can we get some participation? All right.
Yeah.
All right, so 8 people say yes out of 28. So what? All right, 9, 10.
Yeah, we'll give them 2 minutes or 1 minute even. 1 minute to get all the votes in. If you don't, no vote, no quote, folks. That's the rule. You can't step back and then complain after, right? No vote, no quote.
Also,
yep.
I'm going to share the link for people in terms of if you haven't been able to get your quote in today, we're going to share the link that you'll be able to put that in into the survey and also the link.
Well, we need everyone to fill out the survey, even if you told us before. This is yeah. Let's get everyone to fill out the survey so we could so we can have the data all in one place.
All right. So some people say yes in the chat as well, in addition to raise hands. So we definitely have more raised than more than 50% people of participants say yes. So all right. So we're definitely going to diversify.
Okay. We know that.
So all right. Here's the thing now. How many people say that we should invest in 2? So we have 4 picks here. How many people say all 4? So indicate in the chat by saying 4 or just saying 2 or 3. So if you think we should invest in 2, say 2. If you think we should invest in 3, say 3. If you think we should invest in 4, say 4.
Right. Because 1 is not an option based on the last survey question.
I missed some of your classes, so I'm not quite clear on what. When you say,
well, you know, I'm going to communicate with you in the chat, okay?
Thanks.
That's Mona, correct?
Give it a minute for the.
Yes, it's Mona.
Great.
Chanel said at least 3. Jordan 4. You can abstain, Monica, if you feel like you can come to a decision today. All right. So waiting for more.
So this is just asking how many folks, not which ones, but how many.
All right. So when you say at least 3, it's a bit harder to make a decision. So it's either 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You can just say 3 or 4 because at least 3 can mean 3 or 4.
Exactly. Try to be definitive.
And everybody, I shared a link which has the survey questions in it that you can please start to fill out. And if you do not chime into this chat in terms of what you want to do, you can chime into that survey and we will get it and we'll have it reflected next week. But please try to chime in right now. Thank you.
All right, good stuff. All right, so I don't know if you're looking farly, but for me it seems like the majority is saying 4.
Okay.
So how perhaps we can divide this? Do we send out an email with the divisions so we can have like a few people working on a few companies to do some further analysis?
Right.
Or do we decide here?
Okay, yeah, what we can do is have folks now, we're gonna have to pay attention to it, but have folks, actually maybe do it individually. How many people want to do the analysis for Enbridge? How many want to do the analysis for this? You see what I'm saying? If we're gonna have, if we identify the companies, right?
Okay.
And if
then
anybody
in the chat.
And if anybody thinks we need to, I guess I should throw this out there. If anybody thinks that we need to do the social due diligence in terms of social impact of these organizations, that could be one particular area of research. We could come back next week and say, yeah, I know we chose Enbridge, but there's an indigenous protest in so-and-so regarding the oil sand, well, you know, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
So is that fair, Andre? You think, or?
Yep. No, that sounds fair. So can you just indicate? So we have 4 companies. I hope everybody don't choose the same one. So we have Enbridge, we have AMD, we have Pfizer, and we have JMI. So if you can indicate in the chat just by saying which company you want to do further analysis on, just put in the chat the name of the company. So if you want to do Enbridge, say Enbridge. If you want to do AMD, say AMD in the chat, and so on and so forth. So just put the company that you want to work on in the chat, all right? And just looking back at the chart here, so we're gonna come back to some of these people next week. So these are some of the things that you can look at when you're doing your analysis again. So you probably want to just take a quick screenshot of this page here so that you can go directly to this later on. But you want to look at the revenue, earnings, the balance sheet, the income statement, future growth opportunity, return on equity. You want to gain an understanding of the business model, any competitive advantages, management or governance system in place. So you might have to also do some additional work around what these concepts mean, right? So this will help you to be able to do analysis on your own when you're looking at companies, right? So we're going to look back at some of the names in the chat here and what people. Let me just say this here, and so that we can call on you, right? So please, everybody, put something in the chat, the company that you're working on. So far, I see about 8 or 9 people.
And for everybody also on right now, please make sure that you copy the survey link I've put into the chat. And if you're not gonna get the chance to make a decision today on what Andre's speaking about, please put that into the survey. There's a space for comments, and then we will have that ready for next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the survey, responding to the survey is a prerequisite for involvement in the collaborative investment. Let me say that clearly. We have to work together, guys. So information transfer is very important within the organization. And not one iota of what you share will be shared outside of this group. So not to worry.
All right.
Mona, I responded in the chat. If you have any further questions, let me know.
I got Farley's message.
I responded.
Yes, I got it.
You got my message?
Thanks.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Good. Do you understand? Any further questions?
No,
I'll
look at the link and I'll send it back to you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Mona, we see your forehead, but not your face, right?
You saw my crown, right? That's the Duchess's crown.
Yeah, we see from your eyelids up. There you go. There's Mona. All right. I meant to tell you that. Yeah. All right. Beautiful.
All right. So are we good? So yes, so we're gonna do some more research on the company that you've selected, and then next week we're gonna look at that analysis together, and then the final. I guess the next session we'll talk a bit more about that, as well as how the the community investment is going to work, and we'll probably get some people to delegate some people in some interesting roles of being an analyst, etc. So definitely some interesting things.
So that's a good point, Andre. What I encourage folks to do is watch some of those financial channels just for 15, 20, half an hour to see when those analysts come on, what they talk about, how they analyze, what are the key things you're seeing consistently from analyst to analyst.
Right.
They're the same things we've mentioned here, and Andre mentioned very specifically, but presentation style. One of the things we have to do, and this is why we've encouraged many of you to show your face on the platform, because as Carlton, I believe it was Carlton who said, when things get back to normal, right? Or whoever said it, meetings would be in person, right? So I know a lot of us are participating. It's very convenient to be on Zoom, but if we're diligent and true to ourselves about how much we want the community to elevate and move forward collectively, right? Where possible, except for the folks who are geographically sort of in a different area, but we want to ensure that we are presenting ourselves. Like, I still don't know what most of the people on this call look like. I know you guys think we sound like a broken record, but that's not the ideal. I'm not going to say it's not cool, but it's not ideal. Like, we need to know what each other looks like, so that, when we go to the bank to cash our investment check, I want to know that you got your money for the same place I did. You know what I'm saying? by the way, I'm going to say it again. There's a black bank coming to Canada, right? I mentioned it last time, right? So we should be cashing our capital gains should be held in that bank, because we got to do for us at some point in our history, right? In our recent history, right? So just be mindful, be ready. Readiness is key.
Preparation.
You know, Andre likes rhymes. If you're not ready, you're not steady.
Exactly.
All right. On that
Your
note,
photo shoot. Hold on, let's ask Rod how his photo shoot was. How many outfits in the photo shoot, bro? Come on, man.
Well, just to be honest, there was one.
You look very executive-like, my brother.
We're aiming for that.
All right.
Before you close, I have two quick questions. Are you going to be announcing anything about some agriculture conference that is supposed to be happening today?
No, do you have the information that you can share?
No, I thought you would have had it. I heard about this thing and can't find information, but apparently there's monies to be made. It has to do with agriculture. And I've been checking and couldn't find it because there seems to be something where the playing field can be leveled in terms of food.
Okay, food security.
Yes, and it has to do with agriculture, but I couldn't find. I thought maybe you might have had that data, that information.
Okay. Do you have my email address? I'm gonna put my email address because my sister will probably know. She's quite involved in those things.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we close out, again, I'm just urging everybody to make sure you copy the link. I'm going to put it there one more time to do the survey. If you haven't been able to chime into the chat in regards to which way we're going to invest in, please share that in the survey. Also, if you have colleagues who haven't been on this Zoom today, please share that survey with them so that they're able to chime into the chat. And next week, we're able to move forward in a steadfast way.
Right. So the $5,000 that we're contributing to this effort will be divided by the number of participants. Okay. So I don't want to hear anybody the week after saying, "Oh, I missed it." No, we're giving you fair lead time. Right. This is a fully collaborative effort, as Andre said. You know, it's cooperative economics. Look it up in the dictionary if you don't understand it, right? Or on Google dictionary. I haven't said that word in like 8 years. Look it up. Look it up on Google, whatever you have to do, but understand it. And if you have questions, ask, please. The silly thing to do is not ask a question that you want an answer to. The smart thing is not ask any question. No question is silly.
So in the forms, are we supposed to also put in the company that we're going to look up?
You could put that in the other. There's a place that you can share information. So if you haven't made your decision today on the chat, you can share that in the forum. But actually, you know what? Everybody who's on, share that in the forum so we have it just as evidence in terms of what we're moving forward. Okay?
Okay.
I have a question.
All right.
I'm sorry, I have a question about the form. Is it the form you shared in the chat? Because that's a feedback form.
So what's right?
It's a feedback form.
Yeah, so there's feedback, but there's also a space where you can share information. So share that if you haven't in the chat right now, share that in the form.
Yeah, just for everybody, if you just fill out the form, that'll encompass everything that Rod's asking. So yeah, it is a feedback form, but there are other aspects to the feedback. So just read the whole thing and respond to everything possible, please.
I have a question for Farley.
Yes, Jordan.
Do you have any suggestions for channels for like TV channels about this topic?
Yes. Well, we all probably do, but BNN is good. That's a business news network. What else, Andre? There's a few of them.
CNBC.
I mean, all the news ones, CNN and MSNBC, these guys all have it, but the dedicated ones.
CNBC, they talk about stock all day, every day.
Okay, thank you.
CNBC. And you could also go online on BNN and yes, and CNBC. You can also go online and get that information too. It's probably easier actually to go online.
Or YouTube even. Just go on YouTube. Yeah, if you go on YouTube, there are a bunch of financial gurus. You know, it's not about, it's listening to just what they analyze, how they validate their opinions. You know, we always talk about when you make a comment, you should have backup to validate it. What's the evidence? What's the experiential knowledge, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Jordan. Thanks for asking.
One last request, please. Andre, could you
I only see your forehead, Mona. I mean,
Just say you're seeing the crown.
No. Andre, could you please put your phone number and give me a phone number, please, in the chat, because then I could copy it. There's a question.
I did.
Just got hot.
Andre. Was that Andre's number or yours?
Oh, no, that's my number. Sorry, that's my number.
Need
Andres.
Andres. To ask him some questions afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
All right. On that note, we are going to say au revoir for the day and see you next week. Any parting words, Mr. Smith?
Make sure you sign up for my my book thing coming up. Yeah, you know, like it's pretty good, and the recovery, like I said.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
What do you mean it's pretty good, man? I don't mean it's pretty good, man. It's excellent. We don't use pretty good in our lexicon.
Yeah, you know what? And I hired two talented editors from Jamaica. These young women, they're incredible. You know, as I said, I don't only talk the talk, I walk the talk. I support Black talent right throughout, right? And my editor's Black, the person who designed my book, Black, right? So, you know, I hope everybody do the same, you know, to support Black businesses and Black talent.
And Andres, it's going to be self-published throughout?
Self-published. I'm using Book Baby to do self-publishing. Right now, for the launch, I'm going to be the one distributing, but I'm looking into point of delivery distribution, whereas Book Baby, you know, through other platforms will send it out directly to people. But the thing that I want to, part of the reason why I want people to come to the launch is to hear about some of the community work and what people have to say. You know, like I've done a lot of mentorship in Toronto. One of my mentees is gonna be at that session, and he's gonna talk about you know, when I challenged the school board wanted to damage this young man's future from an early stage by, you know, putting stuff in his record that don't make any sense. And I challenged the school board successfully, right? And I had what they wrote expunged, right? So community work is very important to me. And it's something that I talk about a lot in my book. And even if you don't buy the book, still register and come to the event. But I'd appreciate the support if you do buy the book.
And everybody will buy the book.
Can you
support?
Yeah, I came in late, so can you tell me what's the book name and the event?
All right, so I just finished my memoir. It's called Living Purposefully Beyond the Walls of the Ghetto. And it talks about my experience growing up in Spanish Town, Jamaica, and some of the challenges that I had to overcome throughout my life. And it talked about some of the people of influence and support who were able to guide me through that process. And, you know, it talked about how I was able to achieve healing and restoration through the three things that are most important to me, which is family, community, and you know,
money.
Money.
Better get this last one here, brother.
You know, family in the sense of my wife and my son, and then I talk about a reunified family. You know, I was able to reunite the rest of my family, my siblings and I, and it talked about, you know, the impact of my wife on my journey. And so it's you know, the editor, she did an incredible job at transforming my story, right? And so there are people who were able to see my story firsthand. Like, for instance, Manny Gonzalez, he was able to write a foreword in my book. Manny is a pretty well-known person in the US, and he saw firsthand the work that I did because he came to Spanish Town with me and saw me giving out these awards to you know, people in Spanish Town, right? And he saw firsthand and he was moved. And because he was so moved by what I was doing, he used one of his birthday celebration to host a fundraising for my scholarship, right? So and that kind of speaks to what I do now around financial literacy, and the reason why I started to empower people, because I want the Black community to do better. And I realize that economic empowerment is where we're lacking, right? It's where I lacked, and I continue to lack, which is why I work so hard. So it would mean a lot to me if everybody come and support, which I know everybody will, right? So,
all right, for sure. So next week we're gonna share that information. We're gonna have that up so everybody can just jump on and make sure that they're following Andre on his journey and supporting this major movement that he is embarking on. Right now. Farley Flex, last.
So how can I contact?
Farley,
how do I contact Andre?
I'll just send you my email. It's Andre, my first name, ANDRECELL_3 @yahoo.com. I'll just put it in the chat, so you can just email me my personal email, and I can give you the details. I think Camille also shared the link to register.
All right. On that note, Farley, last words for the day.
Last words for the day. Community, collectivity, collaboration can be colossal.
What? That's huge, son. That's huge. That's huge.
Come on, son.
All right, cousins and nephews and nieces, we're about to say au revoir for another week. Thank you very much for sharing your Saturday morning and now afternoon with us. We appreciate you. We value you. Please follow up on the assignment so next week that we're raring to go. And on that note, we are saying not goodbye, but see you later next week. Peace out.